The Sacrament. In February 2010, The Secret Marriage took a brief hiatus to allow for the Encore Network's coverage of the Vancouver Winter Olympics. In a complex deal related to the sale of a different cable channel from one conglomerate to another, Casey Lasco had obtained the rights to broadcast several Olympic sports, including ice dancing, biathlon, skeleton, and Casey's personal favorite, short track speed skating. During these sports, the resumption of The Secret Marriage received heavy promotion in steamy promos that quickly became the subject of much discussion on social media. A parents' organization complained about the excessive sexual content of the promos, which were shown as early as 6 p.m. Pacific Time in what the organization described as family-friendly sporting events. In the United States Congress, several representatives threatened to call both Casey Lasco and Damien D. Savoya Underwood to testify before the House Subcommittee on Communications and Technology. But then the parents' organization fell silent. In fact, it seemed to disappear completely, and the controversy lost steam before any subpoenas could be issued. In an internal memo, Casey praised his marketing team for their outstanding contributions to the emerging field of viral publicity. Immediately after the Olympics closing ceremony, The Secret Marriage returned with a 2-hour special episode. The previously on recap brought new viewers up to speed on the Italian teenager in Skokie, Illinois, and his suspicions about his family, the chambermaid in Naples, Italy, and her faith in Santa Teresa, the friendship between Silvio and Signor Vittori, and their membership in a secret Masonic lodge, the challenge to Signor Vittori's masculinity, his chaste courtship of the chambermaid, the bomb explosion at the Naples train station, the death of the busboy, and the devilish angel in the black leather coat looming over the terrified girl. Then the episode repeated, in its entirety, the scene of the chambermaid's grief-filled visit to Signor Vittori's rooms, and the ensuing night of wild love-making. 6 months later, the yacht of Signor Vittori returns to the Gulf of Naples. Standing alone on the front deck, the mysterious Portuguese businessman notices neither the magnificent view nor the polluted waters. His eyes are filled with memory and longing. He has tried to resume his life as an international playboy and merchant of goods on both sides of the law, but wherever he has traveled, whatever he has done, he has found himself thinking of the chambermaid, her sparkling laughter, her playful teasing, the long, innocent camminate, strolling together hand in hand through parks and ancient tunnels, tombs and narrow streets. And then that night, the night of sudden passion. As he checks into the hotel, he glances around, hoping to see her. But of course she's not there. Chambermaids are not permitted in the lobby. A few minutes later, in the hallway outside his room, after giving a distracted tip to a bellhop, he stares down a long, empty corridor, his thoughts drifting away in the receding perspective. Then he hears something behind him. He turns, and there she is, as beautiful as ever, pushing her cart out of a discreet service doorway. She is obviously 6 months pregnant. Their eyes meet. His eyes say, Why didn't anyone tell me? Her eyes say, Why did you leave me? Before either of them can find any words to speak out loud, Silvio arrives. As soon as he sees the chambermaid, her condition, and the look in his friend's eyes, Silvio knows everything. That the girl has seduced the playboy, not the other way around, and that his friend is now in the grip of that most dangerous emotion, love. Silvio takes Senor Victory to a meeting with the American from Virginia. The American is in an expansive mood and tells them that his Masonic Lodge has been meeting since before the Revolution, that Washington, Jefferson, and Madison were all members. Silvio and Senor Victory, absorbed in their own thoughts, show no interest whatsoever in the history of Freemasonry, and they grow exceptionally bored when the American begins talking about Garibaldi and the Masonic role in the Risorgimento. Finally, the American notices their discomfort and asks what's wrong. Silvio explains Senor Victori's dilemma with the chambermaid. The American's attitude changes abruptly. She's pregnant. With his child? He asks. Silvio nods. The American looks Senor Victory in the eye and says, We cannot allow even your bastards to be born in this country. Silvio says he will take care of it. But Senor Victory realizes what Silvio is proposing and objects furiously. He demands that there be absolutely no mistreatment of the girl or her child, absolutely no mistreatment. He insists on paying for her confinement and the birth of the child in a luxury hospital in Switzerland. The American shrugs his shoulders. One way or another, the child must not be born in Italy. He will leave it to Silvio and Senor Victory to sort out the details. That evening, when the chambermaid finishes her long day of work at the hotel, she finds Senor Victory waiting for her at the service door behind the kitchen, next to the garbage bins. He takes her to a tiny restaurant. Over an elegant light meal, he tells her of his plans, how he has arranged for her to have the baby in a beautiful hospital in Switzerland. Everything will be so much more comfortable for her there, so much healthier for the child, and so much better for her reputation. To his surprise, she refuses. She tells him she won't go to Switzerland unless they are married. Otherwise, she will have her baby here in Naples, and she will let people think whatever they want to think. And what do people think? Asks Senor Victory. She tells him, patting her belly, that most people assume that the father must be the busboy who died in the train station bombing. Senor Victory is horrified that people might think that his own child had been begotten by a busboy. In a sudden, impulsive moment, Senor Victory proposes marriage. The chambermaid is shocked and flustered, but thrilled. She accepts. The next day, Senor Victory, with some awkwardness, tells Silvio that he intends to marry the chambermaid. Silvio, thinking quickly, volunteers to plan the wedding. He makes inquiries among his Masonic brethren. Does anyone know a defrocked priest? He hears of a former chaplain, a heroin addict, who was caught smuggling drugs into and out of a prison. This ignoble now works for the secret police as an informant in the underworld of Naples. Silvio checks with the bishop. What is the status of this priest? The bishop tells Silvio that, although a priest is a priest per sempre in eterno, this particular sacerdote has been barred from his priestly duties and cannot administer the sacraments. Perfetto, says Silvio. In a tiny apartment behind a butcher shop, Silvio finds the disgraced chaplain. A greasy dampness oozes from the walls. Silvio gives the man a new cassock, along with just enough heroin to make him presentable. The broken man begs for more. Silvio promises him a week's supply if he plays his part well. Later, at lunch in the private dining room of the hotel, Silvio explains the deception to Signor Vittori. There will be a wedding, but it will be performed by a priest who has lost his sacramental privileges. This padre cannot consecrate the communion bread, cannot absolve the sins of the penitent, cannot even anoint the dying. The marriage will simply not be real. It will just be a nice gesture, a little show to make the girl happy and get her on the train to Switzerland. With a sad sigh, Signor Vittori agrees. In fact, at that moment he feels relief. He has been worrying about how he would explain the situation to his official fiancée, the biscuit heiress and water-skiing champion. The night before the sham ceremony, the chambermaid comes to Signor Vittori's rooms. She overhears him on the phone. He is talking about a wedding. Something about winning his father's approval for marrying a commoner. At first, she smiles, because she thinks he is talking about her. Then she realizes he is talking about another wedding to a different woman. She feels shocked and betrayed. All her emotions pour out of her, a stream of anger, pain, and longing. Signor Vittori, thinking of the baby's fate, begs her to go through with the wedding and come with him to Switzerland. She slaps him, a violent, ringing slap. He looks at her, stunned not by the pain, but by the intensity of her feelings. She sees something in his face and suddenly kisses him. Thinking that this is another of her surprising moments of passion, he reaches to undo a button of her dress, but she stops his hand. She tells him she doesn't even know his real name. Then I'll tell you, he says. My name is... He inhales deeply, ready to say his full name out loud for the first time here on Italian soil. But she puts her finger on his lips. If you really love me, she says, tell me your name tomorrow in the church. In that holy place, I will know if what you say is true. The next day, armed with an order from the bishop, Silvio unlocks a decrepit little church near the Naples train station. The defrocked priest and an altar boy retire to the sacristy to dress for the ceremony. A middle-aged man and woman, in simple country clothes, mop as best they can the central aisle that runs through the crumbling nave. When Signor Vittore arrives, Silvio introduces him to the couple and explains that they have been hired to work as servants for the bride. Their first task will be to witness the wedding. Signor Vittore tells them that he is happy to pay their expenses, whatever it takes. Alert viewers notice that in profile, the middle-aged man has the same face as Victor's father in his coffin, and that the middle-aged woman is Victor's mama from Skokie, with darker hair. Then, at the entrance of the church, the chambermaid appears. 6 months pregnant and dressed in plain traveling clothes, she pauses on the threshold, framed by the arch of the doorway. Signor Vittore gazes at her, transfixed. The defrocked priest and the altar boy, emerging from the sacristy, stop and stare. The middle-aged woman makes the sign of the cross and gives her husband a little kick to get him back to work. Even Silvio is impressed with the beauty of the bride-to-be. He congratulates himself on his taste. After all, he was the one who selected the chambermaid for her leading role in this comedy. Her own thoughts are more practical, even hesitant and timid. She has a big decision to make. She kisses her scapular and prays to Santa Teresa. Give me the strength to turn and walk away if that is what I need to do. The middle-aged couple finish their mopping in a hurry, and the defrocked priest and the boy take their place in front of the altar. Only then, with tentative steps, does the chambermaid enter the church, walking alone up the center aisle to where Signor Vittore is waiting. My name is Teresa Gargiulio, she says to him. What is your name? Signor Vittore whispers something in her ear. It is a long, sonorous Italian name. She doesn't recognize it or know what the name means, but she knows from his tone that he is telling the truth. She looks into his eyes and sees a longing beyond a desire, a yearning without limits. She prays to Santa Teresa, help me to return the love I see in those eyes. Then she puts her scapular away, takes the hand of her groom, and together they approach the altar. When they perform the vows, their voices are so soft that only the priest can hear. Silvio, in the back of the church, smiles in admiration of his handiwork. La commedia è finita. But on the altar, the priest watches and listens in growing wonder. Only he understands the full significance of what has just happened. In the sacristy after the ceremony, the priest rushes to remove his vestments and find his leather kit, the kit in which he once carried oil and water, sprinkler and stole for the sacrament of extreme unction. He is beginning to tremble, as desperate as he is to open the kit. He knows that there is something he must do first. Frantically he searches through the abandoned sacristy until, in a dusty drawer, he finds pen and paper. He sits down at a small table and, with a great effort, pushes away his leather kit and picks up the pen. A few minutes later, outside the old church, the bells are ringing for the first time in decades. Silvio gives Signor Vittore a clap on the shoulder and a polite kiss to the chambermaid's outstretched hand. He leads the newlywed couple to a waiting limousine and sends them off to the train station. An ordinary taxicab is waiting for the middle-aged servants. As the man loads their luggage into the trunk of the cab, Silvio gives him a stack of American dollars and a list of detailed instructions. The defrocked priest comes out of the church to say goodbye. His hands are now steady, his eyes somewhat glassy, and his manner smooth. He slips a letter to the woman who will become Victor's mamma. "If it is a boy," the priest murmurs, "he will need to know." The scene returns briefly to Skokie, Illinois, 14 years later. Mrs. Damiani, her hair now gray, hands the letter to the boy she has raised as her son. As Victor reads from the letter, we hear the voice of the priest and see him at the small table in the sacristy, pen in shaking hand. He begins to write, spitting out the words as if dictating to himself. First, he begs forgiveness for that which can never be forgiven while it continues, his drug addiction, which has caused him to be banned from performing the sacraments, from fulfilling the holy office of priesthood. He confesses to the shameful fact that he was hired to perform a false wedding, a sham, a bitter farce staged to deceive a poor girl. And indeed, he himself thought the wedding would be fake, until he saw what happened on the altar. We return to the wedding ceremony, now in intimate close-ups with distorted backgrounds. So vividly does Victor imagine the scene that we see him on the altar in his ill-fitting black suit, standing next to the altar boy. The priest says, "Se vostra intenzione di unirvi in matrimonio, datevi la mano destra." Holding the letter, Victor translates out loud, "If it is your intention to join together in marriage, give each other the right hand and declare before God and his church your consent." Bride and groom turn toward each other. They take each other's right hand. The groom whispers, "Io, Vittorio Emanuele di Savoia, accolgo te, Teresa Gargiulio, come mia sposa." Victor reads, "I, Vittorio Emanuele di Savoia, welcome you, Teresa Gargiulio, as my wife. I promise to be faithful to you always." Now dressed in the cassock and surplice of the altar boy, Victor looks wide-eyed at his mother's swollen belly, at her beauty, at his father's smitten eyes. The bride whispers, "Io, Teresa Gargiulio, accolgo te, Vittorio Emanuele di Savoia, come mio sposo." Victor translates, "I, Teresa Gargiulio, welcome you, Vittorio Emanuele di Savoia, as my husband. I promise to be faithful to you always, in joy and sorrow, in sickness and in health, and to love and honor you all the days of my life." The bride and groom kiss. As Victor watches his parents, their tender, shy, loving kiss, we hear the voice of the priest. "In the sacrament of marriage in the Holy Catholic Church," he says, "it is the loving couple themselves who are the sacramental ministers. The priest is only a witness." Now we are in the sacristy. A few minutes later, the priest is explaining what has just happened. Victor, still dressed as an altar boy, listens attentively. "If the hearts of the lovers be true and their words be true, the marriage must also be true. This morning, in this decrepit little church, I witnessed a true sacrament of marriage." The priest puts his trembling hand on Victor's shoulder. And so, my boy, you deserve to know that you are the legitimate son of the Prince of Naples, Vittorio Emanuele di Savoia. Yes, you, a chambermaid's son, will someday be the rightful heir to the throne of Italy, should the monarchy ever be restored. The priest bows to his altar boy. Vostra Altezza Real, he says. Then, having exhausted the last of his willpower, the priest sets down the pen and opens his leather kit. Instead of sacramental supplies, it contains the paraphernalia of an addict. Syringe, strap, spoon, a Zippo lighter, and vials of heroin. Victor watches in horror as the priest wraps his arm and begins to liquefy his fix. "Now get out of here," snarls the priest. "Go back where you belong." 1984. Skokie, Illinois. Victor Damiani, in his awkward black funeral suit, finishes reading the letter. He thinks for a long time, and then asks one question. What happened to my mother? The old woman lowers her eyes in sadness and in shame.